It's Tuesday, November 12th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show. I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. So, the intention of the show was better citizens, being more open to listening to opposing views, focused on the facts, the who, the what, the where, the when, and understanding and appreciating that a lot of the information that's coming your way is not fact. It is not the who, the what, the where, the when. It's a bunch of people saying, oh, this is what I think about this, and this is what I think about the other thing. And in full disclosure, you're going to have a little bit of that from me tonight. So, first, the facts. Facts are, there's two things that are absolutely true. And again, some people would say, no, that's your opinion. No, they're true. And they're true because demonstrated over years of activity, over years of observation, these things are true. So one thing that is true is that Mr. Trump is a long time, prolific, lifetime con man. Okay? He is very adept at it, quite good at it. And he has used his own gifts as far as communication kinds of stuff, as well as some of the financial advantage and fame advantage that he got being part of the Trump family, being his son, the son of Fred Trump, I think his dad was, and this New York real estate mogul kind of thing. And and Mr. Trump himself has worked very hard, very, very hard over decades to try to extend his brand, if you will. So he's pestered people. They used to make movies all the time in New York. They still do, but not as much as they used to. But any movie that was being made in New York, he'd be in there pestering to try to get some kind of cameo appearance in one of the scenes. Because he knew that would help build his brand, which is really important, especially if you want to be a con man on a very large scale, very prolific con man. So that's the number one. This is true. It's a true statement. It's not opinion. It's been true for decades. Second thing that's true, and this is readily apparent if you look at any videos, any correspondence from him from 20 years ago versus now. He is suffering a large amount of mental degradation, and seems the most likely cause for that is the early onset of dementia. So that's on his way. It's unfortunate for him, unfortunate for us, but unfortunate for him. Don't wish that on anyone. People suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, or whatever. This is a very difficult path to go down. Ronald Reagan, another famous Republican, ended up suffering from dementia. I think it was dementia in his later years. Well, this is early onset for Mr. Trump. He is only 73 years old or whatever he is, and that's early. Usually that happens in the mid to late 80s kind of stuff and beyond. So those are both true things. Now I'm going to switch over into some opinion. So opinion, warning, opinion, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. There was a guy named Anthony Scaramucci, and Anthony Scaramucci was his communications director, Mr. Trump's communication director, for a very short period of time. I think it was 10 or 11 days early in the Trump administration. And Mr. Scaramucci was an advocate for Trump. He was a supporter of Trump, and was even after Mr. Trump summarily fired him after a very, very short period of time as communications director. And that went on for a couple of years, but Mr. Scaramucci has since, continued to observe Mr. Trump and has step by step come to the conclusion that Mr. Trump is, acting not in the best interests of the country, which is what he believed early on, and now acting in the best interests of Mr. Trump, which is actually what he's always done. And some of you are fooled, and hence the con man. You are conned into believing that Mr. Trump is acting in the best interests of the United States citizenry. But again, you're being conned. And what happens eventually when people are being conned is, as time goes on, eventually they figure it out. Okay? Eventually they figure it out. Now there's all kinds of opinions keep going here. So opinion, you're the Republicans, and I haven't interviewed the Republicans, but observing them and observing their comments over the course of time, the vast majority of normal Republican politicians don't like Mr. Trump very much. They appreciate that he raises money. They appreciate that he has installed them in power, and they currently have the Senate and the office of the president. And so these things, and because they live for power, that's what they live for. And I'm not just saying them, I'm saying 99% of all politicians, they live for power and the accumulation thereof. Well, once he actually made it to the presidency, and nobody thought he would, but once he was actually elected, they have quickly reversed all of their propaganda about him, all their opinions about him, the ones that they express publicly anyway, in support. And interestingly enough, Mr. Scaramucci was an example of that. In the early days, he said Mr. Trump is unfit for the office and so on. And then eventually, once he was elected, he's the greatest president of all time. What a brilliant man he is. Brilliant policy, again, propping up the president. And the other thing that's true about Mr. Trump is, if you shower him with accolades, he's much more likely to just kind of do whatever you want. And people around him know that, and they like it. So that's why so much praise for Mr. Trump. But what's also true, and here I'm finally getting to the end of this show, and the title, Rats. So this show I'm entitling Rats, and it's because what happens with these oligarchs, these powerful people who are really actually very shady and criminal in many of their actions, but they're in power. Okay, what happens is when that power starts to erode, and the proverbial ship starts to sink, the people around the owner or the head of the power structure, they'll stick with it. They'll stick with it until it's pretty darn clear that the ship is going to sink. And then as soon as it's clear that the ship is going to sink, off the ship they come. Rats abandoning ship. Okay? And so what you're going to see here is Mr. Trump is going to continue to have support of a lot of the Republican Party, at least public support, and that will continue as long as it looks like there is at least a reasonable chance that he can win re-election in 2020. But if it reaches a point where the Republicans, people like Senator Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, some of these Devin Nunes, and some of the other House of Representatives people that have been defending Mr. Trump and some of his actions, as kind of his most ardent defenders, they will support him until it becomes apparent that it's not going to help them maintain power themselves. It's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt their re-election efforts. It's going to, and he's not going to be re-elected, so that, the power is going to disappear from them. And then, boy, watch out. As soon as that happens, wow, you're going to see them spinning like a top. oh, he's a terrible person. I always knew it. I didn't realize, and then they'll disavow, oh, I had no idea that he was that terrible. I had no idea that he did this. I had no idea he did that. Oh, all these revelations. Well, they currently know it. They know all this stuff. They're just ignoring it because, again, because it's convenient for them to maintain power. And right now, Mr. Trump is the focal point and the leadership of the Republican Party, even though a lot of them don't really like what he's done, and especially a lot of the stuff that he does. They're like, wow, this is politically, political suicide for most of us, and why are you doing some of this stuff? It makes no sense. But anyway, so there you go. The rats are going to abandon ship. And the question is, will Mr. Trump's actions carry him to a place where enough of Americans are saying, no, sorry. So, like, for example, his disapproval rating goes to like 65% versus an approval rating of 30% or something like this. If that kind of differential starts occurring, you're going to see Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and all of these guys, Devin Nunes, everybody, they'll be jumping ship and disavowing that they're even ever on the ship. Mark my words. All right. So for the Pro and Con Show, Michael James Ott. Hope you have a great evening, and bye for now.